How does being a victim of emotional incest, EI, affect our ability to have emotional intimacy, EI? Let's explore that today on Ask a Shrink. Hang on. So we have a lot of EIs going on here, right? Emotional incest and emotional intimacy. And does being a victim of emotional incest block or harm or hurt your ability to have emotional intimacy in your life? Kind of a good question, right? Actually, that comes in from a viewer who wrote that in one of the comments. And I do want to address that because that is an excellent question. Because somebody could think, hey, I'm a victim of emotional incest. Yes, I was used as a little mini husband or mini wife from one of my parents. I'm aware of that, but life goes on. But they're not aware of the component which affects their ability to have real intimacy, to be vulnerable in relationships. So the answer is yes, it does negatively impact our ability to have emotional intimacy in our primary relationships. And that's because you weren't able to learn that as a child. It's no fault of your own. It's because your own mother or father wasn't able to have authentic emotional intimacy with their significant other, with their husband or wife. The parents are not able to achieve that on their own. So that's what's role modeled for you. And then because they weren't able to achieve that in their marriage or relationship, they decided to emotionally smother one of their children and take them over for their own benefit. So now you're not learning any emotional intimacy with your parents because it's all about an act. It's all about a facade and putting on and being what they want you to be, which destroys emotional intimacy. Emotional intimacy is about being able to be authentic, to be vulnerable, to show all sides to ourselves, the good, the bad, the parts we'd rather shelve and put away and not ever address. Well, they're there anyhow, and in a healthy family, we can show that to our parents. And then we learn what unconditional love is all about because they still love us anyhow. Gosh, I seem to really suck at this, or I'm horrible with that, or nobody likes me because of this. But guess what? I can tell mom and dad and they still accept me, they still love me. So important messages like that we need as children to learn what it's like to develop emotional intimacy have never taken place. They weren't part of how you were raised. So no wonder as an adult and you want to date and meet somebody special in your life and maybe build a relationship with them, you're struggling and you're wondering why. Well, you have to remind yourself that you couldn't be yourself. So if you couldn't be yourself at home with your own parents, how are you going to be able to be yourself, flaws and all, with somebody you want to impress, somebody you want to lure, somebody you want to be with? When we think of that, we have to be always on our best behavior, always upbeat and positive. And of course, these messages come from what you had to do for your parent. You had to perform for them. So now you're in a relationship and you're wondering, why can't I really connect? What's missing here? Or your significant other tells you there's something missing here. I can't reach you. Why don't you share your fears with me? Why don't you show me who you really are? Maybe they're asking you these kinds of questions and you don't have an answer for it. And even if you kind of have an answer for it, you don't know how to do it because you haven't practiced it. So yes, all of this can negatively impact emotional intimacy in your life as an adult. So the first way to work with that is to tell your partner, your significant other, that you are a victim of emotional incest. Tell them about your childhood. Tell them what it was like being raised and being emotionally smothered by one of your parents. Tell them how that wiped away your identity, and tell them how that eroded your self-confidence and your ability to really connect with people in an authentic way. That in and of itself is therefore being authentic and being vulnerable and being intimate with your significant other, because you're telling them exactly what you went through and being very honest about it. So you build the intimacy by sharing your story and risking the fact that you're going to feel like, I'm going to be rejected for this. There's something wrong with me. I don't want to tell my significant other how I was raised because they're not going to want me. I'm damaged goods. But the reality, the irony of it, if you will, is that by sharing our authentic self, warts and all, how horrible it was, what you went through, how you feel traumatized by your childhood, is actually then how you begin to build the intimacy that's necessary to build a healthy, long-term, lasting relationship. So as much as possible, and hopefully with the help of some therapy, you begin to take off that mask with important people in your life. You're not performing for them. You're not having to put on for them the way you had to do with your parent. You're not having to deny yourself, put yourself at the bottom of the totem pole to prop them up. That's what you had to do with your parents. So you practice what it's like to feel like you're on an equal playing field with your significant other. And you deserve to share your truth, and you'll find out what your significant other is either made of or not made of if they can or cannot accept that truth. Obviously, you don't want to share your life with somebody who's not going to be able to accept you for who you really are. Part of your self-growth and self-love and overcoming your childhood trauma means you're going to have to accept yourself for who you are, the parts of you that you don't like and that you wish weren't there, that are a result of being raised as a victim of emotional incest. Love those parts of yourself. Know that you can't blame yourself here. That comes from your parents. That's how you were trained. So in putting yourself on an even playing field, you'll be able to connect with your significant other, therefore be emotionally intimate, show vulnerability, because you're not necessarily waiting or hoping for their approval. And also you're not going to tolerate their rejection if you do get rejected, because once again, you don't want to be with anybody who's not going to accept you for who you really are. That's a sure sign that that relationship is kaput and you need to find somebody else. So yes, emotional incest can negatively impact your ability to have emotional intimacy, but only if you allow it as you get older. When you're in it as a kid, it's too hard to figure out because you're in it. But as you mature and get older and see a therapist to process all of this, you can begin to challenge yourself to be authentic, to be truthful, to take risks, which means you're willing to share your authentic self, even risking rejection from this other person in your life, but knowing that that's a good thing because you don't want to be with somebody who's rejecting you. And that may need to start by speaking radical truth. Sometimes a way to get ourselves going, we have to tell the truth about everything because we have to set a foundation for what it's like to even begin to tell the truth. So you can practice with that, and after a while you'll see that you don't feel like you have to put that mask or facade on anymore, and you can just simply be, and in your beingness you can tell the truth. And in doing that is how you're going to build emotional intimacy in your life. So I hope this has been helpful. It's kind of a short explanation about some of the damage from being a victim of emotional incest. But with some insight and some working on ourselves and talking to a therapist about our issues, we can truly grow in our life and have wonderful, thriving, healthy relationships. Please leave me some comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Please subscribe to my mental health YouTube channel if you like these kind of videos. And until next week, this is Brad Shore signing off from Ask a Shrink.